Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. When a man hurts you, your first instinct is to react. You want to speak your pain, you want to demand answers, you want to call him out. But the greatest power a woman has isn't in what she says, it's in what she doesn't say. You want to confuse a man who hurts you? Stop giving him the reaction he expected, because nothing shocks a man more than a woman who refuses to play the game he built. When a woman chooses silence in the middle of pain, it becomes one of the most shocking and powerful moves she could ever make. People think silence means weakness, but silence is actually strategy. Silence is control. Silence is where your strength gathers itself. When a man hurts you, he expects a reaction. Tears, shouting, explanations, questions, something he can latch onto to keep the emotional cycle alive. But when you don't give him the energy he counted on, suddenly he's standing there feeling the weight of his own actions, because silence makes a man confront something he has spent his whole life avoiding, himself. A man never truly understands the damage he caused until the woman he hurt stops explaining that damage. The moment you stop telling him how he made you feel is the moment he has to sit with the guilt he tried to ignore. Silence is not about ignoring him. Silence is about protecting you. It's about giving yourself space to breathe, to think, to stand back from the emotional chaos and remind yourself that you deserve better than someone who breaks your heart and expects you to carry the pieces alone. Silence separates you from the noise long enough to see the truth. And that truth is simple. Your reaction is your power. When a man knows your triggers, he can control the situation. But when you take away the reaction he expected, he becomes confused. He starts replaying everything in his head, wondering where your emotions went. He expected you to fight for the connection, to demand answers, to cry and make him feel needed. Instead, you withdrew your energy, and now he feels something he never planned for. Uncertainty. Men don't like uncertainty. They don't like feeling they've lost their grip on something that once gave them confidence. Your silence creates that uncertainty. It makes him rethink how he handled you. It forces him to ask himself whether he misjudged your strength. Emotional discipline is another layer of this power. It's the ability to feel everything deeply, but show nothing recklessly. Emotional discipline means you may be hurting inside, but you refuse to let your emotions drag you into situations that only cause more pain. It means you care, but you care about yourself more. A man doesn't expect that. He expects your love for him to overpower your love for yourself. But when you choose emotional discipline, you show him that your heart may be soft, but your boundaries are steel. And that shifts the dynamic drastically. When you stop giving a man emotional access, he realizes how much he depended on your reactions, your attention, your reassurance. He might not admit it out loud, but your emotional energy fed him. It validated his impact in your life. And when that energy disappears, his ego takes a hit. He starts wondering if you're talking to someone else, if you're moving on, if you're healing faster than he expected. Silence doesn't just confuse a man, it humbles him. Men are not used to losing emotional access to a woman they hurt. They expect the woman to still be emotionally available even when they are not physically or mentally available. They think you'll always be there. But silence breaks that illusion. When you choose quiet strength instead of emotional chaos, it sends a message louder than any argument ever could. I'm done teaching you how to treat me. And that sentence doesn't need to be spoken. It is communicated through your absence, through your calm, through your refusal to engage in emotional warfare. And the beautiful thing is, silence gives you time to see reality with clarity. When you step back, you start seeing patterns. You start understanding what you were tolerating. You start identifying the moments where you accepted less than you deserved. And from that clarity comes power. The power to choose differently, the power to set new boundaries, the power to walk away without looking back. Silence doesn't just protect your heart, it rebuilds it. A man begins to rethink everything when he sees a woman who used to give 100% suddenly giving nothing. He wonders if he went too far. He wonders if he pushed the wrong button. He wonders if he misread her love as weakness. And the irony is, your silence teaches him more than your words ever could. Words he can ignore. Silence he cannot escape. Silence sits in the room with him. Silence follows him in his thoughts. Silence makes him check his phone more often. Makes him wonder why you haven't reached out. Makes him realize that maybe you weren't the one who needed him. Maybe he was the one who needed you. Your silence becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, he sees the version of himself he tried to hide from. And that is where growth, accountability, and regret begin. Not in your tears, not in your explanations, but in your absence. Because when you pull back, the man who once hurt you has no choice but to face the consequences of losing a woman who finally prioritized her peace over his presence. This is the power of silence, the power of emotional discipline, the power of choosing yourself. And every time you do it, you make him rethink everything he thought he knew about you and everything he thought he could get away with. Confidence is a language without words, and when a woman learns to speak it fluently, everything around her shifts, including the man who thought he had her figured out. A man might understand, her habits, your routines, your reactions, even your weaknesses. But confidence changes the entire game. He can predict your emotions when you're insecure. He can anticipate your response when you're anxious. But when you stand tall in who you are, when you move with the quiet self-respect of a woman who knows her worth, he loses all access to the roadmap he once used to navigate you. Confidence is unpredictable to a man who only knew you when you doubted yourself. Self-respect isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's steady. It's the way you stop explaining why you deserve better. It's the way you stop begging for clarity. It's the way you remove yourself from disrespect without giving a speech. A man becomes deeply confused when he sees a woman who used to tolerate certain behaviors suddenly act like she never will again. He wonders what happened. He wonders who helped you see your own value. He wonders if someone else stepped into your life and showed you the treatment he failed to give you. But the truth is, your self-respect came from within. And that realization shakes him more than any competitor ever could. Controlled reactions are where your strength becomes undeniable. Men expect emotional outbursts. They expect tears, anger, yelling, long paragraphs, late-night calls. They expect you to express the pain they cause because it gives them a sense of control. But when a woman stops reacting the way she used to, a man begins to understand that something has shifted inside her. Controlled reactions don't mean you're numb. They mean you're wise. They mean you have grown into a woman who chooses her peace over temporary validation. They mean his actions are no longer able to provoke you into emotional chaos. And that is where the confusion begins. Because once he cannot predict you, he cannot control the narrative. When he cannot assume you'll always be available, he starts questioning his position in your life. When he sees you respond with calmness instead of desperation, he starts wondering if he misjudged your feelings. A controlled reaction sends him spiraling into his own thoughts. He replays the last conversation, the last text, the last argument, trying to understand how he lost access to your emotional availability. For the first time, he feels the uncertainty you once felt. And confidence makes you magnetic. A woman who knows her worth stands, LK speaks and loves differently. She doesn't chase closure. She creates it. She doesn't beg for respect. She demands it with the way she carries herself. She doesn't cling to someone who confuses her. She distances herself from anything that disrupts her peace. A man who thought he could predict your emotions becomes lost when you embody this version of yourself. He sees a woman he can't manipulate, a woman he can't guilt, a woman he can't emotionally exhaust. And that realization makes him rethink his entire approach. Self-respect also teaches a man that access to your life is a privilege, not a guarantee. When you stop explaining your worth and start enforcing it, he begins to understand that relationships aren't maintained through apologies. They're maintained through consistent behavior. He begins to see that your boundaries are non-negotiable, even if he tries to test them. And once he understands that you're no longer moved by the same things that once kept you emotionally tied to him, he becomes confused by your growth. A confident woman doesn't announce her evolution, she simply evolves. She becomes softer in her heart, but stronger in her mind. She becomes more selective, more intentional, more mindful of where her energy goes. She learns that matching someone's disrespect is beneath her. She learns that protecting her peace is more important than winning an argument. She learns that loving herself deeply is the first step to receiving the love she deserves. And when a man witnesses this transformation, he can't help but feel unsettled, because confidence forces him to confront the truth. He no longer has the same access to you. The emotional patterns he depended on no longer exist. The reactions he expected no longer show up. You used to chase clarity, now you create distance. You used to prove your loyalty, now you watch how he treats you. You used to forgive quickly, now you take time to reflect. And that change confuses him because he realizes he never truly understood your strength. He only understood your vulnerability. Self-respect looks like walking away when the bare minimum is offered. It looks like choosing silence over arguing with someone who refuses to understand you. It looks like raising your standards instead of lowering them just to keep someone close. A man becomes confused when he sees you choose yourself over him because it RCEs him to question whether he ever truly mattered, and that confusion becomes a discomfort he can't shake off easily. Controlled reactions create mystery. When you stop reacting emotionally, he starts reacting emotionally. When you stop arguing, he starts questioning. When you stop proving your worth, he starts recognizing it. When you stop showing him he's important, he starts wondering why he ever assumed he didn't need to try. Your calmness becomes the very storm he now feels inside himself. And that is the irony. Your confidence creates the confusion he once created in you. Your self-respect makes him reconsider every action he took for granted. Your controlled reactions force him to confront the consequences of losing the emotional version of you he expected would always stay. There comes a moment when a woman realizes that giving her energy to someone who misuses it is the most painful kind of self-betrayal. And when that moment happens, when she finally decides to pull her energy back, everything changes, because energy is more powerful than words. It's more powerful than explanations, arguments, or apologies. When you pull your energy away from a man who hurt you, he doesn't just lose your presence. He loses the part of himself that was lifted, supported, motivated, or validated by you. And the absence of that energy becomes louder than anything you could have ever said. Men often underestimate the emotional presence of a woman. They underestimate how her attention centers him, how her encouragement builds him, how her affection grounds him, how her consistency stabilizes him. They don't always realize that the warmth you bring to their life becomes something they depend on, something they grow accustomed to, something they assume will always be there. So when you pull back your energy, when the warmth goes cold and the attention fades, he's suddenly exposed to a chill he didn't expect. And that coldness forces him to confront the weight of everything he did to lose access to what he once took for granted. Pulling back your energy isn't about punishing him. It's about protecting you. It's about realizing that your emotional labor is valuable, that your love is not a free service, that your support is not an endless resource. When you choose to pull back, you are simply choosing yourself. You are choosing your peace. You are choosing not to pour someone who poked holes in the cup you were filling. And that choice creates a shift that a man cannot ignore. When you stop initiating conversations, he feels the silence. When you stop checking on him, he feels the distance. When you stop showing up emotionally, he feels the emptiness. And in that empty space, he is forced to deal with something he has avoided for far too long, accountability. Because without your energy to lean on, without your presence to cushion his mistakes, he has to sit with the discomfort of his own choices. For the first time, he sees what life feels like without the emotional support he thought he deserved but never appreciated. Men are not always emotionally aware, but they are emotionally impacted. They may not articulate their feelings, but they feel the absence of what once held them together. And your energy, whether he admits it or not, played a bigger role in his life than either of you realized. When you pull back, he starts replaying moments in his mind. He starts asking himself why you changed. He starts remembering the things he dismissed. He starts recognizing the disrespect he minimized. He starts understanding the pain he ignored. Beck, your absence becomes the mirror he can no longer avoid. And the truth is, your energy was doing more work in that relationship than you ever received back. You were the one who cared more deeply, listened more closely, invested more wholeheartedly. You were the one who checked in, who made effort, who tried to understand him, even when he didn't understand himself. You were the one who kept the emotional connection alive. And when you stop doing that, he finally realizes how much of the relationship was built on your efforts, not his. Pulling back doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying. You stop carrying the weight of his immaturity, his inconsistency, his confusion, his excuses, his lack of accountability. You stop carrying the burden of fixing someone who didn't want to be fixed. And when you put that weight down, when you step back from the emotional responsibility he forced onto you, he suddenly feels the full heaviness of his own behavior, something he never had to face before because you were always there absorbing the impact. Your energy is what made him feel seen. Your energy is what made him feel supported. Your energy is what made him feel wanted. And when that energy disappears, the security he felt disappears with it. A man becomes deeply uncomfortable when he realizes he is no longer the center of a woman's emotional universe. He becomes uneasy when he sees you focusing on yourself, healing yourself, loving yourself. He becomes confused when he can no longer predict your actions because your energy is no longer orbiting around him. And that confusion often turns into regret. He regrets not appreciating your loyalty. He regrets not valuing your consistency. He regrets not reciprocating your love. He regrets thinking he could always come back because now he sees the truth. Your energy wasn't guaranteed. Your presence wasn't permanent. Your love wasn't unconditional. It had boundaries he didn't respect. And now he is experiencing the consequences of crossing those boundaries. Pulling back your energy forces a man to confront the truth he didn't want to see. He hurt someone who genuinely cared for him, and now he has to live with the loss of that care. And the most powerful part of this transformation is that you don't have to yell, argue, or explain. Your silence speaks it. Your distance speaks it. Your healing speaks it. And your absence teaches the lesson he refused to learn when you were still there giving everything. This is why pulling back your energy is not just powerful, it's transformational. It shifts the dynamic. It shifts your self-worth. It shifts the connection. It shifts the balance of power. And ultimately, it forces him to confront the reality he never believed could happen. Losing you was the moment he lost the best energy he ever had in his life. There is a kind of power that comes from choosing peace over chaos, a kind of strength that is invisible yet impossible to ignore. When a woman decides that she will no longer participate in drama, she changes everything. The world around her shifts, and the people in her life, especially the men who thought they understood her, are forced to take notice. Peace is not passive. It is not surrender. It is active mastery over one's own emotions, one's own reactions, and one's own life. And a man who once thought he could control her or predict her behavior suddenly finds himself dealing with someone he cannot read, someone he cannot manipulate, someone he cannot take for granted. That unpredictability is what makes a woman unforgettable. Dr. Amma has a way of masking reality. It creates noise that distracts from truth. When a woman engages in unnecessary conflict, when she chases answers or demands explanations, she gives the other person the power to dictate the emotional tone. But when she chooses peace, when she refuses to react to every provocation or to every slight, she takes that power back. She becomes the master of her own emotional landscape, and that shift is seismic. Men are used to chasing reactions, to having their actions met with predictable responses. They are not prepared for calm, measured strength. They are not prepared for serenity in the face of chaos. And that is when they start to notice, when they start to pay attention, when they start to realize that something about this woman is different, something about her they cannot control. A woman who prioritizes peace over drama also prioritizes herself. She no longer allows someone else's actions to dictate her mood, her energy, or her focus. She understands that her time is too valuable to waste on pointless conflicts, that her heart is too precious to give to someone who does not respect it, that her mind is too sharp to be clouded by manipulation or games. And a man who once relied on her emotional availability finds himself confronting a reality he cannot change. She is no longer available on his terms. She is not reacting the way he expects. She is not chasing the way he assumed. And she is not giving the emotional access he once took for granted. That unpredictability forces him to rethink everything. Being unforgettable is not about being loud or dramatic. It is about being steady in your values, consistent in your standards, and unwavering in your boundaries. A woman who chooses peace becomes magnetic because she operates on a different frequency. She does not participate in chaos. She does not feed insecurity, and she does not validate poor behavior. And in that space of calm, she becomes both mysterious and powerful. A man who once thought he understood her becomes acutely aware that he does not. He begins to question whether he misread her all along, whether he underestimated her, whether he thought she would tolerate more than she actually would. That confusion is born from respect, awe, and a little fear, and it is unforgettable. Choosing peace over drama also forces a man to examine himself. When a woman stops reacting to his provocations, stops chasing his attention, stops trying to win arguments that serve no purpose, he is left with only his own behavior to consider. Suddenly, there is no distraction, no scapegoat, no emotional crutch. He is alone with the truth of how he treated her, how he misjudged her, how he underestimated her. And the weight of that truth is amplified because she remains calm, composed, and untouched by the chaos he expected to create. Her peace becomes a mirror he cannot ignore, a reflection of what he lost, a reflection of what he could have had, and a reflection of what he will never fully control. Unpredictability comes naturally when a woman refuses to let drama dictate her life. She moves with intention instead of reaction. She speaks when it matters instead of when provoked. She invests her energy where it is deserved instead of where it is demanded. And that unpredictability is powerful because it breaks the script that men thought they had memorized. They cannot anticipate her moods. They cannot manipulate her choices. They cannot rely on old patterns to get what they want. She becomes an enigma, and human nature is drawn to what it cannot fully understand. That combination of serenity and mystery ensures she is not easily forgotten. And there is another layer to this power. A woman who chooses peace inspires respect. She commands it without shouting. She earns it without demanding. She demonstrates it without proof. And when a man sees that she will not participate in the cycles of drama he may have used to his advantage before, he begins to understand that she is not only strong, but self-sufficient. He realizes that she is not dependent on him for validation, happiness, or security. That realization shakes the foundation of his assumptions and leaves a lasting impression because he cannot recreate the woman she has become. Drama might capture attention momentarily, but peace holds influence eternally. A woman who chooses peace carries herself differently. She walks differently. She talks differently. She interacts with the world differently. Her aura changes. Her energy changes. And that energy is unforgettable. A man who once assumed control over her now feels the absence of that control like a vacuum in his life. He remembers her presence, composure, her unwavering self-respect, and he wonders if he ever truly understood her at all. That reflection makes her unforgettable, not because she reacted or chased, but because she chose serenity over chaos and became untouchable in the process. Being unforgettable and unpredictable is a strategy that does not require confrontation. It does not require shouting, begging, or manipulation. It requires a conscious decision to live with integrity, to protect your peace, to prioritize your energy, and to refuse to participate in cycles that diminish your worth. And when a man realizes that he can no longer provoke, manipulate, or predict you, he is left with the memory of someone he thought he knew, someone he can no longer control, and someone he can never forget.